going to start our baguette by making our pre-dough. And the way we're going to do that is start with our bread flour, and then we have our water, we have our starter, and we're going to mix this up together. Make sure you get all of that starter that was measured. And we're going to stir this together with either a wooden spoon or a rubber spatula until it's fully hydrated. And then we're going to let this rest for about 30 minutes to fully hydrate the flour and let that gluten start to develop on its own. And this is called the autolyse stage. So I'm going to mix this thoroughly, kind of smushing all of that flour into the moisture. And this will take on kind of a firm looking dough, but it'll be very soft after we let it rest for the 30 minutes. So you want to mix the dough until it's very stiff, but yet hydrated, so you don't see any dry flour spots. We're going to cover this and let this rest for 30 minutes, and then when we come back, we'll add our salt and our additional 20 grams of water. So after half an hour, we want to remove our towel. And we're going to go ahead and add our salt and our remaining water to this dough. And probably the most effective way to do this is just squishing it with your fingers. So I'm going to sprinkle the salt in and then add that remaining amount of dough. So make sure your hands are clean and you get in there and just kind of squish it together. It's quite satisfying. And once that's all mixed fully together, we're going to add this into the mixing bowl and go ahead and knead it with a dough hook for about 8 minutes. And we're going to check for that window pane method. So we'll look at that in just a little bit, but really make sure that you smush all of that excess water and that salt into this dough. All right, once that's pretty thoroughly mixed, we're going to go ahead and transfer this to our mixing bowl. So we're going to fit our mixer with the dough hook and lift the bowl up and then turn this on no more than speed 2. And we're going to set a timer for about 8 minutes. If you need to, you can go up to speed 3 maximum to get it going. But we're going to set this for 8 minutes and come check the dough development at that time. After the 8 minutes, your dough should start to remove from the sides of the bowl as the gluten gets a little bit tighter in your dough. And we're going to check it now for dough development. So we're going to pull the window pane. So now we want to check for window pane, and normally you would do this in the bowl, but I'm going to actually take it out and place it into my Tupperware container. We want to store and start folding our dough in a plastic container or plastic bowl. It really releases much better that way. And now I can actually show you the window pane. So what you want to do is you want to pull and stretch this dough, and you can see this membrane that forms without tearing. And that's what you're looking for when you do a window pane. So you can really see how thin that dough can stretch. So you just want to pull that, and if it's not doing this, it needs longer time in the mixer. So anywhere between that 8 to 10 minutes, but this was just over 8 minutes and we're good to go. So we want to let it rest in this container right here, and then we will start to do our folds in about 20 minutes. After your dough has rested 20 minutes, we want to now start doing our folds. And the easiest way to do this is actually to wet your hands, and then it won't stick to your hands. And what you want to do is from all 4 sides, you want to pull up and over and just turn your container, lifting it up and pulling it over, lifting it up, pulling it over, and up, pulling it over. Every 20 minutes, 4 times, we're going to do this. So I'm going to set my timer and we're going to do a fold in 20 minutes. All right, 20 minutes has passed and we're going to go ahead and give this another fold. And so again, folding from all 4 sides into itself is what you want to do. If you find it easier to lift it with this, then that's fine. So we just want to lift it like that. And then you can go from the other side onto itself. And then from this side, stretch it and onto itself. And this side and stretch that dough and onto itself. We're going to do this 2 more times every 20 minutes, and then we're going to bulk proof it. Once you've done 4 folds, you want to cover your dough and let it sit for 2 hours to bulk ferment. After 2 hours of letting our dough proof, we want to dust the top in the bin and then also our surface, okay? Go ahead and invert the dough onto the counter while you're pulling the dough off the bottom with your rubber scraper. It should slide right out. Then we want to go ahead and dust the top as well, making sure that nothing is sticking. And we're going to cut this into 2 equal pieces. So our pre-shaping for our baguette is going to be pulling this forward and rolling it again and again. Taking here, pulling it forward, rolling it again and again. We're going to place this back into our plastic bin. I'm going to flour the bottom. Take my dough with the seam side down and place it into the bin to let it rise once again. You notice that I did not overhandle the dough, trying to maintain all of the nice proofing that we have. So all the gases we want to keep inside of there. I'm going to cover this and place this in the refrigerator for anywhere between 1 to 2 hours. So now that our baguettes have rested for about an hour or 2, we want to remove them from our surface here. We also want to go ahead and dust this lightly. And then go ahead and place seam side up this time in order to shape them. In order to shape each baguette, what you want to do is just very gently degas it, and then we're going to push over the dough with your fingers or with the sides of your hands. We're going to fold it over 2 times, really tightening up the skin right here. Then with your thumb, you're going to push in your thumb here, and then with the palm of your hand, push down the seam to get all the bubbles out, and push in with your thumb here so that you don't end up with a really sharp tail. Then what you want to do is roll the log slightly and just let it rest. We're going to do that with this one as well. Degas it slightly. Go ahead and form the tight seam here with the sides of your fingers. One more time. This will help keep the shape of the baguette nice and tight. Then we want to push in the corner here, and then with the palm of your hand, push down against the base, again pushing in the edge and sealing that seam tight, rolling it this way. In order to elongate your baguette, you want to make sure that you do not have a lot of residual flour on your surface. You want to take your hands almost like with a triangle in the center and use your thumbs to help push that seam nice and tight under, at the same time making your ends a little tapered by angling your hands downward. So again, forcing your thumbs into the dough and then tapering the ends as you elongate your baguette. These are small baguettes. Make sure that your seam is nice and tight on the bottom if you see it opening up at all. We're going to let that rest for just a second, come back to it, and then go ahead and do this one. Again, not rolling it all the way over, but into itself, and then elongating and tapering your edges. Don't make this too long because we do have to accommodate this in our oven, and so if your pizza stone is not long enough, then your bread will fall over the stone. So this is a good size. We want to make sure they're both the same size. Just gonna taper that slightly more. And then we're gonna place this onto what we call a couche. And the couche is we're gonna use a sheet pan and then place a tea towel, which will be our linen. We want to go ahead and dust this with some flour and place our baguettes seam side up. So we roll it over and then we use this to separate them so they don't stick together. And we're going to, again, seam side up. Make sure you use enough flour so that it doesn't stick to your couche. And go ahead and flour this slightly more. Make sure they are the same size. And we're going to let this rise until it's about 1.5 times its original size. When the baguettes are done resting, you want to uncover them with a towel, and then I want to place them into the refrigerator. Before I do that, I want to just check to make sure they're done, and what we do is a poke test. So I'm poking this, and it's not springing back too fast, and actually that's perfect, so it should be finished here. So now I'm going to place it in the refrigerator for about 20 minutes to help form a little skin on there, which will help me when I go to score the bread. It won't be sticky at all. So we're gonna go ahead and leave it uncovered, place it in the refrigerator, 20 minutes. In the meantime, I have my oven heating up to 485 with a pizza stone. All right, so a couple of things when you are ready to bake your baguettes is, number one, you have to have your pizza peel or something similar prepared with a little bit of flour so that it will slide right off. We wanna take our baguette and kind of place it onto our arm and very, very gently place it seam side down. I'm gonna do these at an angle because just the spacing of it. So again, very gently kind of lift it and then place it onto my board here. All right, I do want to put a little bit more flour on top so it has a nice contrast after I slash it. And I have just a little tea strainer, and I can just kind of dust it with the flour and then kind of spread it on the top a little. You don't have to do this, but it does look really nice, the contrasting look after it's baked. So the next step is to take your lame. If you have one of these, fantastic. If you don't, you can use a sharp paring knife, and it's all about the angle. So when you score your bread, you want to go at a low angle here because it's going to open 90 degrees. If you go straight here, then your split will be like this. And we want it to have a really nice look that opens kind of on the side. So I'm going to do 3 slashes here, and really what you want to do is, actually I'll do 4. Right there. You got to work really quickly and give it a decent amount of depth to it. So we're ready to place these in the oven. I have my pizza stone heated up, and I also have, I put a muffin pan on the bottom. You can use a cast iron skillet. You want to heat it below the pizza stone and have some boiling water ready to go in the oven to create the steam. Okay, so we're gonna open up the oven and I'm gonna pour water into here. Just a couple cups worth. Go ahead and slide that in, and I'm gonna take my baguettes and place them onto my pizza stone. The bread had baked for 10 minutes with the oven turned off after the initial steam, and then 15 minutes back at 450 degrees. I'm going to remove the baguettes and place them back onto my pizza peel. And you can see that the slash opened up nicely, and we have a beautiful crust. So I'm going to let these cool for a little bit, and then we'll cut them open. So we're going to cut open the baguette and then show you that it has beautiful crumb inside. Nice and holy. It is from the sourdough starter. We've got great fermentation and we're gonna enjoy.